Did hit go live? We are
Did. Yes, we're waiting.
fantastic.
All right, we're live. My name is Cluff, financial coach, and we've got my good friend here, Brigham Blackham. So we're live. We're trying this out. We're seeing how this goes. If we get some good results, we'll keep doing it, or at least I will, and I'm sure Brigham will too. So I'm excited to bring him on. So I met Brigham actually through a group of a training group that I'm involved in, and we're both involved in actually, where we talk about how to better communicate and increase our message and monetize our messages by understanding how to either get on podcasts or get on stages where we can actually grow and develop our message and monetize it. So if you're interested in learning more about joining that same group that we're in, hit me up in the comments, or at least I'll try to put that in the show notes as well, a link to that. It's a fantastic program, and I met Brigham there, and we started talking. And of course, my channel is about creating wealth. My channel is a lot of those who watch my shows, watch my my YouTube channel, know that I like to talk about growing a massive bank account. And that's, of course, a fun thing, get your MBA. Most people think of the MBA in terms of school and, the university and Masters in Business Association. To me, no, I want to help people get an MBA that's a massive bank account. Brigham, do you think that's a cool MBA?
That's a great MBA. I like that MBA way better. It's not just a piece of paper.
Right. So Brigham has a podcast where he goes through and talks to business owners and entrepreneurs about how he can help them level up their business. However, in talking to him a little further, I realized that he actually has a great way to and has created a great passive income for himself. And I want to talk a little bit about that, but we'll get into that in a minute. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of taking your income and turning it into wealth. And the key there is by buying assets, hence the funny name, kick your wealth in the assets. And so Brigham and I came up with that funny name. Hopefully you guys enjoy it as well. But Brigham, tell me a little bit about your situation, about who you are, where you kind of just give a little background, and then we'll jump into some things. We'll jump into a little bit about what assets are, why you should take your income and buy assets instead of dumb stuff. And then we'll turn to what are you doing with your income and what did you do to buy assets? So let's start with who you are and what you've done.
No problem. Well, first, Paris, thank you so much for doing this collaboration with me. I'm super stoked to be on today. And one of the things that has been really top of mind for me is, how do I create the lifestyle that I want? And assets has been the thing that unlocks that door. When you have income flowing in, whether or not you get out of bed in the morning, that is going to be something that changes the way that you live your life. Now, when I first got this idea of, hey, I want to create more assets for myself, I was a teacher. For the last 7.5 years, I was working as being a theater teacher and a Mandarin Chinese teacher.
Interesting.
Got a wealth of experience telling stories and helping people in that way. But it was something that did not really fulfill me in the way that I was able to go and have hardly any income after I was done. Now, I don't know if you've got a lot of teachers in your background that kind of struggled financially, but that was very common. I was surrounding myself with people that were barely getting by, and I realized I was associating with the wrong people if I wanted to be wealthy. They were very good at what they did, but they weren't always looking for that next level. How do I go and get in front of the right people? Because I thoroughly believe in the law of association. If you are,
they say that
associating with, go ahead.
What's the thing is, it says that you are you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most.
Absolutely.
And that includes net worth. So good point.
Yeah. So if you are not associating with people that are pushing the limits of what your limiting beliefs are, often you're going to get stuck in that comfortable, hey, I'm just making it. And I was there 7 years ago. I was stuck in this. Well, I know that I'm going to make an extra $3,000 or $4,000 next year, and then another $3,000 or $4,000 next year. And that was how I made more money, was just wait for the next school year, because there's a step up. And I actually, when I got from HR, I looked at it and I was like, wait a second. Over the course of my entire career, I could look exactly how much I would make gross. I would never gross $1 million as a teacher over a 30-year career. And I was taken back. I was like, wait a second, this vehicle is not going to get me where I want to go. Like, if I want to to go and make a massive impact, go and positively impact people in not just my classroom, but across the world. I have to make more money so that I can make a bigger difference with people. And not even netting $1 million over the course of an entire career, I knew I was in the wrong vehicle. So I
I like
made a
what you said
shift.
there, because
Yeah.
something I say a lot is that money doesn't make you, it reveals you,
Yeah.
and then it magnifies you.
Mm.
So if you want to have good magnified in the world and you're a good person, the more money that you obtain, the better and more good you'll give to the world. So I like that, kind of goes right along with what you just said, Brigham. I like that. Thank you.
Absolutely. And when you're focusing on the things that will create wealth rather than just create a paycheck. I love Jim Rohn. He's someone that says, profits are better than wages, right?
Hmm.
When you think about how you can go and create profits for yourself, you run a business and you generate profits. There is a different mentality about creating profit rather than just, hey, I put in my time, now give me my paycheck.
Yeah.
And there is no entitlement as an entrepreneur because you get paid in the value you create, not in the time you put in.
Hmm.
And I think that is a key distinction. And when we're going to be diving into assets, I love the financial definition of an asset rather than the school version. When I was in school, they said, well, an asset's anything that you own. It's just anything that you physically can, sell and potentially gain value back from it. And
Hmm.
I've never met anyone that's actually retired off of that definition. The
Right.
definition that I understand and what I continually grow my mindset around is an asset in the financial definition is something that generates income for you, whether you get out
Mm.
of bed or not. That's what an asset is. And I know lots of people in real estate, in business, that are able to generate significant profits because they focus on finding and creating assets, not
Hmm.
about, hey, how do I just get a paycheck? Because eventually that paycheck is not going to do all that you want it to do. And the only way that you can make more money is maybe go back to school. And you're like, wait a second, what if I could just learn how to be of more value?
Hmm.
You are a huge asset in your business. And if you aren't willing to go and up your skill set, your mindset, and your tool set and your associations, that knowledge that you gain, if it's not actually put into work, then you don't have the value come out of it.
Yeah. And today, especially in our time that we're in right now, I've heard the saying before, 9 to 5 is to pay the bills and 5 to 9 is to build your dreams.
Mm,
Another thing is that if you're not intentional with your money, then you're going to give it to somebody who is. And I like that a lot, because the reality is, especially in our day right now, there's so many people looking for a side hustle. There's so many people that want to make extra money. I just talked with a guy recently, actually, and he had so much desire to make more money, and ended up falling for a scam. And so
mm.
there's some things that we need to be aware of course, in building our wealth and in creating and building assets. When people there's so many people in the world, Brigham. I don't know if you've probably mentioned or seen this yourself, but there's a lot of people in this world that make good money. And then they're like, what do I have to show for it? Or they make good money and they're like, where did it all go? Have you noticed that too?
Oh, absolutely. I talk with people every single week, and often they share where they were before and where they are now, but they're just broke at a higher level.
Right.
Like you talk about doctors or lawyers, people that are making a significant paycheck,
Hmm.
but because they don't know how to invest their money, they are bleeding out in expenses. They're purchasing liabilities,
Right.
and those liabilities start to snowball. And they start thinking, oh, I'm only paying a little bit of interest on this credit card and that credit card and now on this car. And that interest starts to compound. And those that don't know about compound interest pay it, and those that do earn it.
Earn it. Amen to that. Amen to that.
So finding a way that you can make your money work for you, it's the best employee that you'll ever have.
Absolutely. Get your money. In fact, I just did a video on my channel about how once you get to the point, actually, it's about to release. It'll release this Friday. But in that video, I talk about creating and building towards your financial independence number. I believe retirement is not an age, it's a dollar amount.
Yeah.
And there's many ways to achieve that dollar amount. Traditionally, in the FIRE movement, have you heard of the FIRE movement?
Hmm.
FIRE. It's FIRE, financial independence, retire early.
I
The
like that.
traditional FIRE movement is let's go invest in stocks or in the S&P 500 and just build a big old massive bank account, basically a big old account, and then live off 4%. For the
Mm.
4% rule is a true rule where they've done plenty of studies where if you build up, say $1 million or $2, you can live off 4% of that, 50, 60,000, 70,000 a year and not ever have to dip into your actual principal. You just live off the interest and that's your dollars working for you. Now, I agree that that's a great way to do it. However, there are faster ways to do it, I think. And so, can we jump into, do you feel good so far? Can we jump into different kind of
Yeah,
assets people buy and maybe the wrong ones, what people think are assets, but really aren't, and then maybe talk about what you're doing?
I love it.
Okay. So one of the things I know for sure that people think that is an asset, and it kind of is, but not really. I kind of teeter on whether it is or isn't, is your primary residence, like your personal
Mm.
home. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
My personal thoughts, man, it depends on how you're using it.
Right?
That's
Okay.
actually the thing. When I think of an asset, is it making you money? Now, is your personal residence making you money or costing you money? It
Yep.
is
If
an
it's
asset,
costing,
but not for you right now. It is it for the bank until it's paid off. And then you're like, wait a second, do I still have to pay taxes? Oh, it's still costing me money.
right?
I have to pay insurance. Ah, it's still costing me money.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as you, well, let me look at this. If you have my friend Janine, she's turned her house into an asset. She's a single lady, and she's in her golden years. She's got 6 bedrooms that she rents out, individual bedrooms, and it nets her over $4,000 a month. Okay.
Dang.
She's turned her house into her retirement.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, right? That type of real estate. But very few people are willing to share their home in that
Yeah, their
way,
personal
that
residence.
type of house hacking. So unless you're house hacking or you have some type of casita that covers all of your expenses and you're making at least $1 more than everything you have to pay, it is a liability in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think that's something that really a lot of people don't realize is that if I like what you said, if it costs you money, it's technically a liability.
Yeah.
And if it makes you money, it's technically an asset. And that's when I do my net worth. Like one of the things that I talk about is net worth is your financial report card. It's how well
Mhm.
you're doing now that you're, in real life and hashtag adulting class, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of people, I keep track of my house, my mortgage, my equity separate. Like I know it should
Mm.
be kept track of, but it's separate to me than an actual liquid net worth. And a lot of people are buying assets that they think, and I feel like stocks is kind of the slow way
Mhm.
to build wealth. The fastest way is either to create a business or in real estate.
Yeah.
And would you agree with that?
I totally agree with that. Typically in business, if you have even a simple product, let's say I have this on my desk. This is one of my daughter's little hairpins. If you could find a way that you could make this for $1 and sell it consistently for 2, you have a simple business, right?
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be a super complicated thing. And as long as you have a margin, you can consistently sell those and you find the right people that actually want them. You can start to make wealth and make profits rather than just a paycheck. So a business is something that you can generate wealth in any product or service. There's legitimate businesses in so many different fields. And my guess is whatever your skill set is, you can absolutely find a way to monetize it.
Hmm.
So business for sure. And then as far as real estate, man, there are so many different ways. There are
Right.
diverse ways to make money in real estate. I like to think of it uh, as an ideal investment, and that's a little 5-part thing. You've got income that you can generate from real estate,
Hmm.
right? You've got deductions. So if you've ever had the tax man come and say, "Hey, you owe me some money," if you buy some real estate that year, you can actually get some deductions and take some of your money back from Uncle Sam, right?
Hmm.
You've got equity, you've got appreciation, and then you've got leverage. All of these are different reasons to buy real estate, and all of them have their own version of a return. Some of them are actual, like cash flow, an actual return that you can see, like, oh, I can use this spendable money if I
Hmm.
want to, or put it in a savings account or pay off the principal. Or you can take that money and say, look, it has appreciated, but I'm not going to sell my house. Maybe you refinance it and you can pull
Yeah.
out some money and go buy more assets. So Did that answer your question? Give you a
I
little
think
bit of an
so.
overview. An
Yeah, I think
ideal
so.
investment is what I feel real
That's
estate
what I
is.
think is a lot of people are trying to find ways to make more money, and rightly so. We need to find ways to make more money in this world right now. And there's a lot of people, I don't know if anybody listening right now has in their feed, you know, Amazon stores and side hustle this and comment this, and I'll teach you my ways to make millions of dollars with a faceless whatever. And then there's the other ones that are like, oh, get an Airbnb business and all these other things that people are doing. And I thought, you know what, Brigham, your specialty right now is short-term rentals, right?
Mhm.
And so I feel like a lot of people are investing in things with a little bit more of a spirit of speculation and not as much of a spirit of education,
Yeah.
and taking time to really study it out and do the risk assessments and figure out what are their one. I feel like somebody should choose what they want to do based on a couple of things. One is their competencies, like what are you competent at? Two, what are you passionate about? Like if you think about, man, if
Mm.
I started a side hustle, if that does that passion give you passion? Or does you know what, I really want to get into real estate. Oh man, that really gets me passionate. Or what if you just want to do stocks? And I don't know, I don't really personally, I'm not a day trader kind of guy, but maybe if that makes you passionate, go for it, you know. So the idea here is to find something that really kind of is caters to your core competencies, helps you become passionate about it. And so what got you, Brigham, of all the different options that are out there,
Mhm.
the different opportunities out there, what focused you towards short-term rentals? Like what, tell us a little bit about what you're doing there, kind of that
Sure.
story about what got you into that, and tell us what you're doing in short-term rentals and Airbnbs.
Okay. First, let me share a concept and then I'll dive into it. Something called an idle asset.
Mm-hmm.
In short-term rentals or in Airbnb type of properties, you may even have an idle asset that is currently doing nothing for you.
Mm-hmm.
My parents had one. It was a little duplex that one side wasn't rented. And I saw that as an opportunity. I had been taking education about real estate investing, and I was like, wait a second, I could make money with that. And I talked to my parents and I said, hey, you guys aren't currently renting this out. Let me do a little renovation on it. We spent like 4 or 5 grand putting everything together, getting it furnished. And then I threw it on Airbnb and VRBO. And my first year doing that, I made 12,000 gross and I netted almost 6 grand
Wow.
in 1 year. And the best my parents had ever done previously was $400 a month gross.
Mm,
So made significantly more money. And if we ever had a bad tenant, we could kick them out because they were guests, they were not tenants. And there's
yeah.
way easier
The rules for
ways you
Airbnb
can
are way
deal with a
different, aren't
guest
they?
than a tenant. So yeah, say that one more time.
I said the rules for Airbnb are way different than they are for rentals, long-term rentals.
Yeah, because you're not collecting rent. You think about it, it's not rent.
Mm-hmm.
You're collecting a booking fee and you're running a business from that property. So just
Nice.
like you'd go to a strip mall and maybe there's like a card shop and then there's a little dentistry place and there's a little uh, I don't know a little mall area that has dresses that they sell out. Every single
Mm-hmm.
one of those they have a storefront and they sell a product or a service. And
Mm-hmm.
the service with Airbnb is a night's or a few nights rent, right? A few
Yeah.
nights that they can come and stay in there and it's fully furnished. So for me, as I got into this, I realized, wow, there's a lot more profit margin here than I realized up front. So I started keeping that money. And my first few rentals, I actually was still working full time. I just let that money accrue for like almost 2 years before I even touched it.
Mm-hmm.
Let it build and I put that money into another rental. And then I let that money build and put it
So
into
did you
another
buy
rental.
a single family residence after that and then make it an Airbnb, or what
No,
was the next rental? Tell us
so
about
my
that.
first rental was with my parents. My second rental was also one that was my parents. It was a, a second side of a duplex. So I had
Okay.
both sides. And then
Mm-hmm.
my parents had a guest house that they weren't using as well. It was just family stuff. So I talked with them. And there's 3 that I had that were idle assets that I was able to basically create a win-win scenario. I was making sure that I was managing them, taking care of all the expenses, and then I got all the benefits from it too. Not typical results. Some people really have to find different ways that they can find properties like that. Maybe you're you're familiar with like renting out a room on Airbnb. This is one of the ways that a lot of people get started. They're like, well, I've got a 4-bedroom house. I only really use 2 bedrooms. I'll rent out 2 of the bedrooms. That is another way to get started with an idle asset. Maybe you have like a garage space that
Mhm.
you could make into a casita. A lot of people have done that with alternate dwelling units. There are
Mhm.
lots of ways that you can start to repurpose space and create an available unit for Airbnb. So for me, what I did is I saw the lowest hanging fruit in my current opportunities. I took those and then I put them into a another unit. Now this next thing is a little bit different. It's called arbitrage short-term rentals. Are you familiar with this term, Paris?
Arbitrage is when you,
Yeah.
in banking, arbitrage is when well, basically is when you give your money to the bank in a
Mhm.
savings account and they give you 0.1%, and then they take that money and go out and lend it.
Yeah,
And
they
the
make
difference is what the bank gets to keep. And so arbitrage
exactly.
is a definite fantastic term, especially if you're in the middleman.
Yeah. So creating that middleman relationship. There's a way that instead of purchasing my next 5 short-term rentals, what I did was I actually rented out a corporate lease with 2 different complexes, and then I furnished them. I put the systems together, and I made all of the upfront expense necessary to make sure that I could run it as an efficient business,
Mhm.
and then put that on Airbnb and VRBO and Booking.com so that people could come and find it and stay in that place. So that's another way that you can go and start to create uh, an asset for yourself. There is a caveat here, though. You still have rent to pay, even if nobody stayed there. So there were probably 5 or 6 different months when times got tough during COVID. Sometimes when things didn't work out in uh, like sometimes in November, there would really dip low, and you might have
Mhm.
to come out of pocket a couple grand to run this business. But that's why you look at it over the entire year
Yeah.
and you say, all right, over the entire year, how much did I actually make? Because some months were low, some months were great. You
Mhm.
have to look at your
Average
numbers.
it
And
out.
if you don't know your numbers, you're just really struggling. So I had
So you
5 of
literally you
those.
took a
Oh, go ahead.
lease. So you created a lease,
Mhm.
went to an apartment complex, and you made a deal with the apartment complex, and then you turned whatever apartment they allowed you to do into
Yep,
an Airbnb option, and
exactly.
you made money off that. You still had to pay the rent. Of course, you're on the hook for the rent, but then you made the money by renting it out in those short-term rentals with Airbnbs.
That's
Now,
accurate.
how did you learn how to do that? Like, is there a
Yeah.
course that you
Well, I
took, or
I first
do you
learned how
teach
to
it?
do that from a group called Renatus. I started out with them. They taught me everything I needed to know about taxes, structuring my business, putting ideas together to make sure that this couldn't just potentially work, but to make sure that you win and then play.
Mhm.
I really like that idea of being able to make sure you do all the things right up front so that you can provide a great, clean, affordable option for people consistently.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have good reviews, even if you're like, "Oh, it's a brand new unit. Sorry, the first 5 or 6 reviews are bad," you can totally tank your profit completely.
Yeah, that's
So,
critical.
going
So
into
what
this
was your,
very wide like, eyes wide open and well educated is so key. So, go ahead,
how
Paris.
many times so how long have you been doing it now? So total,
Doing
since
it doing it since September 2019. That's when I got started for the very first time.
wow. How many rentals do you have now, would you say?
I've got 9 right now. I used to have 12, and I recently took a management contract back, so I've got 9 of my own. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So what would you recommend if somebody's looking to get into this and do that? What would you recommend somebody do to, learn more about how to get into short-term rentals and do Airbnb contracts or any kind of Airbnb, you know?
I I would say probably the first thing you wanna do is ask yourself, "Do I like to be on my phone?" If you don't
Okay.
like to be on your phone, you wanna you can still invest in this asset class, but you'll probably want a manager rather than your own. Oh, shoot. One second. My light turned off. Gotta bring the light. There it is. Okay, come back. But it's not a completely passive income source. It is
Okay.
a semi-passive income source because you are running a business. So I
Mhm.
have a virtual assistant that I pay to do most of my operations, but I didn't pay him that for the first few years. The first few years it was all me.
Yeah.
And I found my cleaners, I found all the different people that needed to be there so that at any given point, any time, I could have someone go and, you know, change out a towel or fix a towel rack or something.
Or
So having those
Fix the
systems in
toilet
place is so important. What was that, Paris?
or fix the toilet.
Or fix the toilet. Yeah. That's actually one of the reasons why I chose apartment complexes is because they have 24/7 maintenance.
Oh,
So
nice.
if you want to be a landlord and be the one that goes and fixes that all the time, you absolutely can do that.
Mhm.
But that's another strategy within short-term rentals. There's tons of different ways you can make money as a short-term rental. A campsite is technically a short-term rental. An
Yeah,
RV park is technically a short-term rental if you put little tiny homes on there. So
awesome.
there's lots of ways you can do this.
So what would
And
you say somebody would need in terms of startup capital? Like what would be a good startup capital amount for somebody? So let's say I'm making, I've done my budget. I've done everything I need to do. I have an extra cash flow here. I've
okay.
got my say, I'm kind of got a good foundation. I'm ready to invest. What would be a good, like, how much money do you think would be necessary to kind of jump in short-term rentals?
So let's say these people, when they're starting out, they want to rent rather than purchase. That's a
Hmm.
different demographic because
Sure.
if you're purchasing, you're going to figure out how do I buy this and you have the debt service on it, you'll have to come up
Hmm.
with a down payment. And you'll
Yeah.
also need to come up with any renovations to make sure that it's up to par for the market, and you'll need the furnishings. So that will be one element. You'll make the most money doing it as an owner,
Hmm.
but the fastest way to get into the game is as an arbitrage short-term rental host or as a property manager for short-term rentals, because then you only have the furnishing costs and the systems costs. You don't have to come up with a down payment. You don't have to come up with any of that, but you do have the month to month cost of making sure that you hit your rent. So you need to know your numbers. So let's say you've got a 1,000 square foot house. Okay,
Hmm.
little 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,000 square feet. Not huge, but not tiny. You will put maybe 15,000 to $20,000 into this house, and now you get it top of the market, beautiful furnishings. You don't usually put brand new furnishings. It's something I learned. I paid full price for that lesson. You guys can get it at a discount, but you typically would anticipate anywhere from 15 to $20 per square foot if you're willing to go buy slightly used, high quality furniture. You don't buy cheap furniture because you
Hmm.
will end up replacing it within a year or two. And the life of furniture is only 5 to 10 years. So if you have cheap furniture, you're going to be replacing it 4 or 5 times over that 10 years.
Interesting.
So
So is it better to buy on value?
buy on value, absolutely. And if you can find high quality furniture that can actually withstand a lot of usage, way
Hmm.
better.
Wear and tear.
And typically, you want to get some used furniture that's high quality rather than brand new stuff that's really high quality, because there's so much markup on new furniture. It's crazy.
Yeah, I bet.
So
So that's really cool. We thought about going 30 minutes here, so we're almost to
yeah,
that mark. One of the things I think that's really powerful about what you've shared, Brigham, and what I kind of want to know is how long did it take you to replace? So the name of the game is passive income. Get
mm,
your assets to the point where your assets are paying you, and so that you can take time now. Because one of the things we want to buy back with our assets is time.
yeah,
And you've built you told me the other day that this is all you do now. So
yeah.
how long did it take you to build up to the point where this was paying for you to be able to quit your job and go full time at doing it? And since you've gone full time, how have you been able to grow even more exponentially since then?
Yeah, so it took me from September 2019 until June last year to put enough of my income into assets to be able to create my financial flexibility. Now, I
Hmm.
wouldn't consider myself financially free. That term is a little bit overused in some
Yeah, I
respects
think so
because
too.
you think about it, maybe there's regulations like they did in New York and no short-term rentals ever again.
Hmm.
Okay, now I'm no longer financially free. But it has created flexibility for me. It replaced my income as a teacher completely. So
Hmm.
now I can actually focus on growing my speaking career. I can focus on growing my podcast. I can focus on outreach and creating more value for more people. And I've been doing this the last year almost consistently, trying to find ways that I can make a bigger impact. So, I mean,
Can I
I'm
can
not
I
like,
talk about that for just a
yeah,
second, Brigham?
go ahead.
So when I meet with people and one of the things that my real strength is helping you set that foundation so that when you do go onto the high wire of life, like you're doing, and
Mhm.
and if something collapses, you're going to collapse into a safety net. You know, a lot of people will,
Yeah.
no, I'm going to go and I'm going to invest their money, and then they collapse and then they're bankrupt. You know what I mean? Like, no,
Yeah.
we want to help you avoid that. So let's get you strong foundation first. And then once you have a strong foundation, let's move towards that. So I've met with several people and one of the things that I teach is, look, what is your why? What do you want to do? If money was no option, let's say that you had all your bills paid for every month and you didn't necessarily have to work. You had the freedom that you're talking about, Brigham. And what would you do with your life? You just said you would want to create more impact. You would want to you have a speaking, you have a podcast. Like, there's all these things you wanted to do. You couldn't have done any of those things as a teacher because you didn't
No.
have time. And so one of the things that we do when we have a dollar bill that we're ready to spend, you can only spend it one way. Once it's spent, it's gone. That's the opportunity cost. And so a lot of people are taking their income and they're buying dumb things with it, things that don't turn into assets, things that don't create passive income. And then once it's spent, it's gone. It's over. If you're listening to this video right now or listening to this even afterwards, and you really have a desire to make an impact on the world and you want to do something great with your life, if you want to do like Brigham's talking about, create, get on stage and speak, if you have a passion or a mission or a project like that, you're going to have, and you're not ready for it yet, then you're going to have to take the dollars that you're spending now and think to yourself, I have a dollar. If I spend it on this dumb thing, it'll be gone. But if I invest it, if I put it in savings, if I get myself ready and prepare myself to be able to continue to buy assets that will pay even you, like you said, Brigham, you're not a multimillionaire yet, right? But
No.
you have a passive income that gives you the freedom and the flexibility for work optional. And
Yeah.
now you can have more time to go build your dream. And so that's kind of I hope that's the main message people take away from this, is that use your money to buy assets that pay you money that will then give you the time freedom to go really build and magnify whatever it is that you're passionate about in the world. Brigham, does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail right on the head. Everyone, if you just take this away, say, what am I going to do with the money that I already have coming to me? The choices that you make, whether to spend or invest, will determine your future.
Mm-hmm.
You show me what you invest in, I'll show you your future. I'll show you what you actually could create if, instead of letting that opportunity cost just go into a boat or into a fancy car, say,
Mm-hmm.
what if I bought one rental and that rental got pregnant, and then you made another baby rental, and then those two rentals got pregnant and you make another baby rental. You
Right.
think about how much you would have wanted to buy a rental 10 years ago, knowing what you know now. Like,
Yeah.
think about this question. If 10 years ago, knowing what you knew now, you had bought 10 rentals, how would your life be different? Is there any way, if they were cash or even breaking even, is there any way that you could have lost on that deal? Oh my
Right.
goodness. Like, maybe they only doubled in value.
Mm-hmm.
Man, how
We're
much
going to be
wealth
10.
can you create?
We're
Yeah,
going to
go
be
ahead.
10 years old in the next 10 years. We might as well do something now for the next 10 years. Great point.
Exactly.
Great point, Brigham.
So
Well, I
I
want to just thank
appreciate it.
everybody for listening. Brigham, do you have any last minute wisdom or thoughts before we end?
Last minute wisdom. I think one of my favorite books, it's The Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kiyosaki.
Yes.
There's so many different people that get stuck in the self-employed and the employee side of the cash flow quadrant. But
Mm-hmm.
as soon as you say, I'm going to be a business owner and I'm going to be an investor, you take control of what you do with your money.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, other people are controlling you with their time, with your time, and it's very time-based. But as soon as you say, I'm going to create value so I can put them into assets, and as you build more and more assets, you can have your assets purchase liabilities. But as you focus in and say, I want to be better, do better, have more, I want the skill sets that I need to be able to be wealthy, surround myself with amazing people that are living, breathing proof that as a business owner, you can create wealth. You can
Mm-hmm.
create amazing things. You're going to have an amazing life. So
That's awesome.
whatever it takes to go be a business owner, to be an investor, take the time to do it.
Yes.
Learn and take yourself and say, hey, you know what? I know Paris knows quite a few things. I know Brigham knows quite a few things. Who else can I listen to to be able to help me get to that next level.
Yes. Have
That's what,
mentors, have those people around you that are going to help you take you to the next level. Brigham, I know we're kind of, we tried something new on this live. I hope it worked.
sure.
I broadcast to my channels, and I'm pretty sure Brigham was able to broadcast to his channels.
Yeah.
So we were doing a simultaneous, really cool channel swap, share here. I hope it worked. We hope it worked. If it did work, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, make sure that you let us know that you were on the show, that you like the show. Maybe we'll do this again at some point where we talk more about different things. But Brigham, when I kind of say that because most of the people listening might be able to already know who you are and find you, but just in case they don't, how can they find you, or how can they keep in touch with you or listen to more about what you're sharing and bringing to the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look up on YouTube, Brigham Blackham, I'm the only Brigham Blackham on YouTube. And you can find my
Okay.
Leveling Up podcast. The easiest way to get to know me is, I love doing social media and creating value that way. I share a lot of really awesome insights. I have an opt-in form. I'll put it in the show notes as well. I wrote a little ebook, it's like 36 pages, that is about my experience the last 2 years creating value on social media. And if you guys want that, I'll give it away for free. And that lets you opt into my emails and my newsletter so that you can get more connected with me and drink the Kool-Aid, as one of my friends says. You can get
That's
connected, and
awesome.
I'd love to add more value to you. So that's
Awesome. Well,
gonna be easy.
to your audience, if you guys want to know more about my financial coaching and business, I'm pretty much the only Paris Cluff on YouTube as well. So if you
Awesome.
type in YouTube, Paris Cluff, I also have an ebook that I've created that talks about how to create more cash flow in your life with the current budget that you have. And a lot of people say they don't have, I can't invest. I can't buy assets because I don't have any money. I'm in debt. I have, no savings. Well, if you're that guy, if you're making a ton of money and you just have no idea where it goes, you're not managing it properly, then I would be a great resource for you. I would be that's the kind of person that I'd be able to help. And then once you have the cash flow, once you have a good savings and a good foundation, then we move you over to Brigham, who can teach you how to take those assets into passive income and create a lifestyle for yourself where you have a work optional and freedom and flexibility. Brigham, thanks so much for coming on. And I hope that your audience got a lot out of this as well as mine. And I hope we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you, Paris. It was a pleasure to have some time to share with you. And thanks for the great conversation.
You
Appreciate you
bet. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
too. God bless, guys.